Welcome to the Menopause Hour, your go-to source for answers to your burning menopause questions, the ones you won't get from your OBGYN. Brought to you by Winona, where menopause care is made easy. Download our free Winona community app where thousands of women connect and access exclusive content, expert-led courses, exciting events, and more. It's time to take the guesswork out of your hormonal journey.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Doctor Dialogue, Surviving the Holidays and Menopause. We are so glad you're here. Thanks for sticking around for a few minutes. We were just kind of figuring out some things, and we got it all figured out, and we're so glad that you're here. So today, for those of you who don't really know the difference between Doctor Dialogues and our live Q&As, is really they're very similar, but sometimes we like to talk a little bit about something extra or have like a little bit more of a theme kind of around our Doctor Dialogues. So we're going to just kind of be talking a little bit about what it looks like to survive the holidays in menopause. So kind of as you're thinking about if you have any questions you want to ask Dr. Green, go ahead and you can start putting those in the chat. And if you don't know where the chat is, it's going to be the button at the bottom of your screen. So you can go ahead and click that and go ahead and start getting your question all up in there. But until then, and it looks like we have Dr. Kat joining us as well, which is super exciting. Hi, Dr. Kat.
Hi, sorry about my technical difficulty.
Oh my goodness, no, we're so glad that you're able to jump on. Well, I was just telling everyone a little bit about the difference between live Q&As and Doctor Dialogues, but and how the Doctor Dialogues, we tend to have a little bit of a theme or a topic we're talking about. And tonight we're talking a little bit about what surviving the holidays in menopause looks like. So while we give everyone a chance to kind of throw some questions in the chat, I will hand it off to Dr. Kat and Dr. Green to introduce themselves a little bit and maybe jump into a little bit just about what the holidays kind of can look like in menopause, maybe what to prepare for. So Dr. Green, I'll hand it off to you first to kind of jump into that.
So I'm Mike Green. I am an OBGYN. I actually did a family practice residency first, fell in love with women's health care, and decided to do a whole residency so I could specialize in that. A second residency, which of course made my wife happy, but so I've been doing OBGYN and women's health for most of my adult life. I finished OB residency in 99, so that's a long time. And I am the Chief Medical Officer of Winona and help start this project. And we are super excited about how it's grown over the last 4.5 years and been able to take care of so many people, so many women that have been unable to get satisfactory HRT and menopause care from other sources. So we're super excited to be here to help you. We love to educate and we love to answer your questions. So please start typing your questions in the chat. Otherwise, we're just going to be chatting amongst ourselves. Might be a little entertaining, but it may not be as educational as it. Dr. Kat.
And I'm Dr. Kat Brown. I'm the medical director at Winona, and I'm also a board-certified OBGYN. I served in the Army for 12 years. They're actually paid for my medical school education and my college education. I was the first one in my family to graduate from college. And so there really wasn't a college fund. So I have a unique experience because I moved all around the country, taking care of soldiers, female soldiers, but also wives of male soldiers too. And now I work as an OB laborist in a hospital, but then I also take care of patients here at Winona as well, doing menopause care. And as medical director, I do a lot of outreach. I do a lot of podcast interviews. Maddie and I were just in Indiana doing an event with Winona patients in Indianapolis, which was great to meet some of you in the wild. I don't know if any of those ladies that we met there are on the call tonight. That would be neat. We're there. Do shout out in the chat, I guess. But I had some technical difficulties. I entered a little bit late today. All my computer stuff was good to go, but I have one kitty cat who likes to kind of roam behind my desk in my office. And I swear, every time he does this, it's a wire loose. And somehow my audio is all disconnected from my computer. So I think he's the culprit yet again. This has happened twice before. We're like, who's the cat? Yeah. It is like, And I wouldn't be surprised if one of them just all of a sudden jumped on my desk and is like walking across. And I always like to be in the camera.
You're as bad as my kids. They always blame the animals.
Well, I mean, I was working all day and my audio was fine. I had music playing while I was doing charts earlier. So I knew the audio was fine. But then as soon as I got on to log in, I was like, wait a minute, where's the sound? I'm not even hearing my mouse make sounds. Like the notifications were all gone. So I knew something was up. And
Well, you managed to figure it out though. So happy.
no, the way I figured it out is I got my laptop and it's sitting on my desk because it was I'm trying to pull out my desk to find the stray rogue wire, So, but here I am. So yes, we very much like to educate patients and really, when it comes to your health, you are the best advocate for yourself. You only have one body. And you know your body best because you're living in it 24/7. And so knowledge is power. The more you learn, the more you can track what's going on in your body, the better you can ask for help and advocate for yourself. And what we know is that women tend to navigate care for most of their family too. So the more you educate yourself, all the other people in your family, especially other women, are going to benefit from that as well, from whatever you can learn here tonight. So
we've got the holidays coming up, and a lot of us have sort of a love-hate relationship with holidays. And it can be a really stressful time for people. And so managing that and menopause at the same time just puts sort of one more stressor on. My personal advice for surviving holidays and menopause is to make sure you take your HRT. This is not the time of the year that you want to go bare. I have this thing when people ask, like, how long should I be on? How do I know when it's time to go off? I say, every now and then, maybe every couple of years or so, you can do a little trial of going off the medicine and see how you feel. And if, your body will tell you pretty quickly if you need to go back on. But if you feel the same, then you may decide that it's not something that you want to continue. And that's completely reasonable. However, this is the wrong time probably to do that. I always joke, you don't want to do it just before your kid's wedding, but you probably don't want to do it just before the holidays do it. So you want to make sure that you stay on your HRT, be good about remembering to use it every day, even though you've got all this stuff going on. Maybe you're traveling, life can get really crazy over the next 2 months. And so it's something that you don't want to be without. The other thing is you want to kind of keep an eye on your supply and when your refills are coming, because we all do a lot of traveling. And so if you realize, oh my gosh, I'm going to be out of town, you can message into your doctor and we can send a refill in early, or in some cases, if necessary, we can send it to wherever you're traveling to, depending where in the area the state that you're traveling to. So those are all things that you want to kind of think about. This is probably a good time to start looking at that, doing the map, like when is my refills coming, and make sure you're going to have enough to get you through.
Yeah. I think the other thing that women tend to do, I know I have been, definitely guilty of this, is definitely during the holidays, we tend to overcommit. And I think that there is power in knowing what your limitations are and what you can handle and what you cannot. And learning to set those boundaries and knowing what you can really fit into your schedule and not overextending yourself, because adding that extra stress, traveling to multiple places, trying to figure out really what is best for you. Like, this is the time in your life where you really need to put yourself first. And I know the holidays are all about family and friends and getting together and giving, but you cannot be everything to everyone. And you cannot, help anybody else if your cup is empty. You can't, give from an empty cup. So make sure that you prioritize your self-care during this time. I think that's so very important too, which means optimizing your sleep, making sure you're keeping on your nutrition, your exercise as much as you can, taking your medication as regulated, as regular too. But also just doing little things for yourself during this time. Like, yes, we buy gifts for everybody at Christmas. We try to travel and do everything for everyone else, but making sure you're taking time for yourself and doing something that you enjoy, whatever it is, even if it's something little. For me, it's like I need to get outside on a regular basis. Like, I need to be outside in nature. It doesn't matter how cold it is, what the weather's like. I just know that I function best if I get outside. And if I have days in a row, like where I'm working in the hospital and multiple days I don't get to go outside, I feel it, and so we all have those little things. I know for you, Mike, it's getting in your boat, right? Or skiing.
Yeah, it's getting a little cold, but yes. Actually, my afternoon office during the summer is sometimes on my pontoon boat out on the lake. I bring my laptop and hotspot off my phone and answer patients' questions. So it's a nice place to work. It's interesting. One of the things that we've noticed at Winona is each year around this time, our volume of new patients goes way down. And in fact, the first year we were in a semi-panic because we thought something was broken. It's like, oh my gosh, what's going on? And then eventually we realized it's just sort of the natural fluctuation of the holidays. And kind of what it means is that people stop taking care of themselves. They're so busy doing stuff for other people that, they just don't have time to take care of themselves. And that's really not a healthy way to be, as Kat was saying. So it's really important that you do keep yourself healthy. Don't neglect your own health and your own other things that are important while you're taking care of those around you as well. So it doesn't look like we have a very inquisitive audience tonight.
Well, we do have one question. And then just as a reminder for anyone who jumped in a little bit late, if you do have a question, go ahead and drop it in the chat and we will get to it as soon as possible. So usually it gets pretty crazy. It might be a bit of a smaller crowd, which is usually a good thing though, because that means you get a lot of individual attention if you have any questions. So feel free to drop any of those questions in there and we'll get to them. But while you all might be thinking or kind of, ruminating on something you might want to ask, we do have a question from Lisa. And Lisa is wondering, she says, once I'm on the HRT regimen, will I need to continue this forever? She says, I'm on a topical cream currently.
Well, it's really a personal decision that each woman makes about how long she wants to stay on hormone therapy. So for most women, they're on hormone therapy about 5 years, but now the trend is really changing. And I think that many women are seeing all of the long-term benefits for long-term health, as far as bone health and heart health and cognitive, prevention of cognitive decline. So a lot of women, if they're feeling well, and as long as they don't develop any other medical problems that make it more high risk, a lot of women are staying on HRT as long as they possibly can. I know I'm one of those women. It's one of those things that when you notice the difference and you really see the positive impact it has on your life, it's really hard to go back. It's really hard to think about going back to where you were prior to. So, and I'll tell you, most female OBGYNs that are on hormone therapy themselves, we all say, like, you're going to have to pry it out of our cold, dead hands. We want to stay on it as long as possible. So,
yeah, it's interesting in healthcare, probably and other things. There's sort of a pendulum that swings back and forth, and what we do. And years ago when I first got out of residency, it was, put everybody on HRT forever. And then all of a sudden the pendulum swung the other way. It's like, oh no, HRT is going to hurt people and it's scary. And now over the last little bit, 5-10 years, we're getting more and more data, realizing how important HRT actually is, not just for helping you get to the menopause transition and helping you with symptoms, but for your long-term health. And so it really, it for a long time, we were telling people you want to be on the smallest dose for the shortest amount of time possible. But that really is kind of older thinking. And I think things are evolving now and we're realizing it's really actually very important for long-term health. And so more and more people are recommending to stay on HRT longer.
Completely. Well, and I think I see a couple people typing, so I'll give them a second kind of to work through those questions. But one that I think could be an interesting topic to kind of jump on as well is, I think that, as we're the holidays, we're seeing more ads. And I know like a big one that we get a question on a lot is about testing and hormone testing. And I've heard from recently in the community, people have been seeing ads about this. While we kind of let some people just drop their questions in, I see a few more now. Just would love to hear you all maybe, I know that we get this question quite often, so maybe it will be helpful for some people on here. What are your thoughts on that? Your opinions? I would love to hear a little bit about that.
I'm curious to see what the ads are and how they're, targeting patients, because for those of us that, work in the menopause space, really testing is not helpful. It really doesn't help us to know where you are in your transition, how best to treat you, what medications to give you, or how to even tweak your medication. It's not like getting your hemoglobin and knowing how much iron to give somebody. It's not the same. And so that's something that patients need to realize. And it's funny because the Menopause Society just had their national meeting a couple weeks ago in Orlando. And one of the lecturers actually was giving a talk about misconceptions in menopause care. And she said something that I really liked the way she put it. She said, getting hormone testing for perimenopausal women gives them the illusion that you care. And I was like, wow, that's so true. Because so often people will run all these hormone tests. And then what happens is they say, well, I don't really know what to do with this. Here's your results. And I have a lot of patients upload all these test results for me to look at in the portal when the doctor who ordered them has no idea why they ordered them or what to do with them. So getting labs doesn't actually mean that's going to give you useful information. And I don't like to order labs unless I know what I'm going to do with the result. And in this case, hormone testing is not recommended. So Menopause Society doesn't recommend it. Here at Winona, we don't recommend it. ACOG, which is our College of OBGYN, doesn't recommend routine testing for menopause labs. So that's something that, don't waste your money on it, ladies, especially if you're seeing ads to do self-testing at home or like urine testing or to see where you are in the menopause transition. This is not helpful. And it's not going to give us any useful information. The best information we can get from you is your symptom log, taking a symptom diary, being able to tell us like qualitatively, like how many nights are you not getting sleep? How many times are you getting up? How many hot flashes and night sweats are disrupting your day? How bothersome are these symptoms to your lifestyle? That's much more useful information to me than a set of labs with estrogen levels and FSH levels and progesterone levels. Yeah.
No problem. Well, I get ads, I won't call out the company, but from a certain national lab company all the time, targeting, do this health prop or do that health file. I don't know when labs became direct consumer. It's kind of interesting, but they certainly have. And, laboratory testing has become a multi-billion-dollar industry, and, people want your money. And honestly, a lot of people want your money and don't really care whether they're giving you good or not. They just, here's some tests. And the hormone tests are just not accurate. It's not useful information because it's bad information. It doesn't really help us. It doesn't accurately tell us what's going on in your body. And so what I say is, when you make a decision with bad information, you make a bad decision. And so there are worse things than no information, and that's bad information. And so when you do labs, you're really getting information that's not accurate. It's bad information. And that often leads to bad decisions. We see them a lot at Winona. So we see people, these women go into their doctor, they're having all these symptoms. They're well-meaning doctor probably because, they don't know better, orders a bunch of labs, and the labs come back normal, and they say, well, your labs are normal, so, it's all in your head, or it's not your hormones, or what have you. And then, fortunately, they find their way to us, and we get them appropriate treatment, and they do much better, and they feel great. And so, acting on these labs that are inaccurate ends up with really bad decision-making and bad outcomes. So, and they're expensive, and they're time-consuming, and they're kind of a pain in the neck. I mean, who wants a needle jabbed in their arm if they don't have to, or must have to spit in the tube, or, collect their urine right over yet. So, there's just no reason to do that. It's just not helpful. And so don't waste your time and money on stuff that's not useful.
Well, it looks like we do have some questions coming on in, so we can kind of jump into some of those. But we have a question first from Bridget. And Bridget says, I was lucky enough to develop some pretty annoying acne. I think there's probably a sarcastic tone with that, Sunshine. But she says, since I didn't have an acne problem when I was younger, it's really frustrating and embarrassing. Will this go away with time?
Yeah. So if you just started hormone therapy, and especially if you started our DHEA supplement, this is one of the known side effects that some women will get when they start that. And generally, this is temporary. But also, acne can actually be a symptom of perimenopause itself, too, just from all the hormone fluctuations. So, just like acne is a big deal in puberty when there's so much flux in hormones, it's kind of the same in perimenopause and menopause as well. So generally, we recommend using a nice, acne wash, making sure that you're, washing your face regularly. Don't go to bed in your makeup. Make sure you clean your face before you go to sleep at night. And if it's a real problem, if it's something like if you just started the DHEA supplement and you've noticed it since starting that, just keep an eye on it. Do those things as far as your skin maintenance. And if it doesn't get better after a month or two, we can always try to pause on the DHEA if need be. But most of my patients are able to get through that adjustment phase and acne clears up.
And our next question tonight is from Bethany. And Bethany says, I haven't yet started my HRT because I'm waiting for it to come in the mail. She says, I have a protein shake that has mushrooms in it. Is that safe to take with the estrogen cream and DHEA?
Yes.
You may have crazy visions, but probably not that kind of mushroom. So
I don't know. There's all these trends right now. I keep seeing ads for like this coffee substitute that's made from a mushroom blend. Mushrooms, yeah, like the mushrooms are like the latest trend right now, I feel like.
Yeah.
So I love mushrooms, but there isn't anything about mushrooms that's going to interfere with it. So knock yourself out.
And protein is very good. Making sure you get enough protein in your diet is a very good thing.
And our next question is from Brene. And Brene is wondering, she says, even though I'm on the 50-50 cream, I was still feeling hot. She says, my doctor increased my prescription from 2 pumps to 3 pumps, but my hands are still experiencing that hotness. Will that issue eventually subside?
Usually there's an adjustment phase for your body to get used to the medication. And if you have a dosage adjustment, you might need to give yourself a few weeks to kind of get used to that new dose. In the meantime, make sure you're drinking plenty of water, make sure you're optimizing your sleep hygiene, making sure you're trying to rest as much as you can, because your body needs those things for the, creature comforts and the self-care to help acclimate to anytime you're changing dosage or adding medication.
And our next question is from Angelina. And Angelina says, I just started HRT about 3 months ago. And she says it's helped tremendously. She says, I was so against HRT due to the information that has been put out there regarding breast cancer, blood clots, strokes. But thus far, I've finally gotten back to myself with clarity. Every once in a while, I still feel my mood fluctuate, but I try to deal with it the best way I can. She says, my question is, when would it be recommended to obtain a higher dosage on your cream? And what is the maximum recommended dosage?
Well, so if you've given the medication a good few months and you're still noticing symptoms or you still have bothersome symptoms that haven't been totally improved, then we can talk about, adjusting the dose. I don't like to talk about like what's the maximum dosage on these webinars because I feel like if we start talking numbers, then women get this, idea in their head of like where they're going to hit. And because it's really individualized. Every woman's body is different. And what we prescribe for one patient might not be what we recommend for another patient. And everybody responds to medication differently. So that's what's unique about us. You're not going to get like a cookie cutter, like here's your plan. Everyone gets on the same plan. Yes, our cream is probably the most popular option and many of our patients like that, but we have a lot of different dosages, different ways that women take it. And so it's going to be something that's unique to you. So if you've been on it for a while and you're still noticing symptoms, reach out to your doctor, let them know.
The other thing about dosage is that it not only varies from person to person, but it can vary for the same person over time. Mm-hmm. And so it's not unusual for someone to be on a stable dose for a long period of time, and all of a sudden symptoms start creeping back in, and it's time to adjust the dose. Or maybe some side effects show up and it's time to lower the dose. So the body's needs to change over time. So not just person to person, but even in the individual. And that's why, our doctors are all available anytime. if there's an issue, message in, because we really want to tailor this to what's happening for you, not just sort of, oh, this is the average dose or this is the maximum dose. It's what does your body need, and your body will tell us.
And our next question is from Lindsay. And Lindsay says, I've developed horrible dermatitis on my hands. My PC doctor is treating it as an allergy. Is this more likely a side effect of the hormones or the treatment?
I'm being passed a little note from my daughter who's asking to stay up and watch TV. That question.
I'm happy to read it again.
I'm like, can I go to bed early tonight?
I know, right?
Which is right, yeah.
A dermatitis on the hands in particular would be a really uncommon side effect from the medication. If you're on the cream, instead of pumping it into your hands and then applying it, you pump it directly into forearms and rub your forearms together like this, which would avoid direct contact to your hands. Although I think it's really unlikely that the medicine is what's causing this. But if you're seeing somebody in person and they're, giving you a diagnosis, they're much more likely to be right than we are just reading a question on the internet. So, there's a lot to be said about being able to, especially a rash, to be able to look at it and feel it and really see it. So, I think most likely, that's where the best information is going to come from.
Okay. And as a note, Lindsay also just sent through another comment. She says, I do put it on my forearms currently. I don't know if I did. Well, all right. And our next question is from Brene. And this actually touches a little bit on Angelina's as well, because I think Angelina was talking about how she had been a little bit nervous about HRT just with information about the breast cancer, blood clots, strokes. And so Brene is wondering, she says, my mom developed breast cancer in her 60s. I was wondering if I should be on HRT and wondering if people on HRT ever develop breast cancer due to the medication.
So just from having a family history of breast cancer doesn't disqualify you from being able to use hormone therapy. The only time that you should be really cautious if you have a family history of breast cancer is if you've tested positive for one of the genes that increases your risk for breast and ovarian cancer, the BRCA genes. And that's something that because your risk is so much higher than the baseline population when you carry that genetic predisposition. And so you just have to be cautious. That doesn't mean that you can't use hormone therapy, but it probably means you should probably see somebody in person for it if you have the BRCA genes. So in that case, I have a lot of patients over the years that are very reticent based on a family history, based on a family member that's had breast cancer. And the answer is, do women on hormone therapy develop breast cancer? Yes. Is it from the hormone therapy? We may never know. It could have been that it's already been growing, it's already there, and they happen to take hormone therapy because there are certainly plenty of women that develop breast cancer that have never taken hormone therapy. So, it's all about risk and reward. It's all about looking at the big picture, pros and cons. And with any medication, there is no medication in the world out there without risk. But specifically with the breast cancer risk, this risk has been so inflated and so exacerbated in the media and everywhere. You're more likely to die of a heart attack in the United States than you're ever going to be to die of breast cancer. You're more likely to cross the street and get hit by a car, be in a car accident. I think that we as women have this very strong, unfounded fear of breast cancer. And yes, although it is a risk, it's something that can happen. I think that we all fear that any little thing that we're going to do is going to cause it. Just the fact that we have breasts puts us at risk for breast cancer at some point in our life. Just like men have risk of prostate cancer at some point in their life. If you live long enough, it's going to happen. It's just a matter you don't want it to happen when you're young. You don't want it to get to a higher stage, that kind of thing. But you wanted to add, Mike?
Yeah, this has been really well studied. And unfortunately, people like to quote the old studies which weren't, didn't have all the data, and we're getting more and more data. Estrogen in the estrogen in HRT does not cause breast cancer. It just doesn't. And that's been extremely well studied. Now, if you have a breast cancer and you use estrogen, it can make that breast cancer grow more quickly, but estrogen is not going to cause a breast cancer. Progesterone, interestingly, can, but the latest data is that the type of progesterone now that we're using, particularly at Winona, the bioidentical micronized progesterone, most likely does not increase the risk of breast cancer. So the sort of big studies that were done using a different progestin, is what we call it when it's synthetic progesterone. And they were done using something called medroxyprogesterone or Provera. And in those studies, what we found was that women that were on estrogen alone did not have an increased risk of breast cancer. Women that were on estrogen and the synthetic progestin had a small increased risk of breast cancer. And so the conclusion then obviously is that, well, it must be the progestin that's causing it. And it probably was. But now, at least at Winona, we don't use that progestin. We use the bioidentical micronized progesterone. And there's good data coming out that with that progesterone, there's not an increased risk for breast cancer. So, the latest data and the best data that we have is that HRT does not cause an increased risk of breast cancer. If anything, it may actually give some protection. I would not say that, that's why I say might in the latest data, because, this is still being looked at. So it's not something that I'm going to throw out there as one of the benefits of HRT, but I think pretty clearly we know that it's not going to increase your risk of breast cancer. Now, if you have a breast cancer, yes, it can make that breast cancer grow more quickly, which is why we're really careful with people that are extreme high risk of breast cancer, because they could have a small breast cancer we don't know about. But family history of breast cancer, your mom, when she was 60, really is not a reason not to start HRT. It's really not a big risk for you. It's scary and it's really unfortunate for your mom. But you shouldn't rob yourself of the benefits of HRT because of this fear that's really not based on the science.
Well said.
Oh, that's great. And our next question is from Tracy tonight. And Tracy says, I just started on the HRT cream less than a week ago. She says, I have very sensitive skin, and I've been alternating my forearms. But what other areas on the body are best to apply just in case I start breaking out?
Yeah, so any area of the body that is non-hair bearing, except for the breasts, would be okay. So for some women, that could be the inner thighs, the backs of the knees. But honestly, I've not had many patients deal with irritation from the cream. It's a very non-irritating, hypoallergenic base that the medication is in the cream. And so most women do just fine with it. And so I always caution women to not, if you're somebody that uses a lot of other moisturizers, perfumes, things like that, you want to make sure that you get the medication in before you apply anything else. And maybe, if you start to notice skin changes or anything like that, then you need to take a look at all those other products that you're using as well. Because it's really rare for us to have patients that break out from our cream. I really have not seen it very frequently at all.
Yeah, I agree. The interesting thing is the patch is sort of the opposite. Mm-hmm. Adhesive in the patch does tend to cause irritation for people, particularly if you get irritation from bandages and things like that. So for people that have really sensitive skin, I generally advise the patch may not be the best thing because that does tend to cause some skin issues. With the cream, you just don't really see that, or at least very rarely. But you can rotate it, and the back of the knee, the inner thigh are all good places that can be used as well.
Okay. And the next question is from Sandra tonight. And Sandra says, I'm on the 50/50 cream and it has changed my life for the better. She says, I'm so happy to finally feel better again and like myself. She says, I do not take any other medications, but I would like to know what vitamins I should be taking with the HRT, because currently I don't take any vitamins.
So depending on how old she is, big thing that we usually recommend is calcium and vitamin D. That's the big one. because, as far as your bone health goes, that's the best way to make sure that your body has the substrate to keep your bone healthy and be able to make new bone, because we don't want you to get osteopenia, osteoporosis. The other thing that is recommended nowadays, and not every patient needs it, but magnesium is being more and more utilized by patients to help in the evening with sleep. Also can help with preventing headaches, but there's some evidence out there that it can help with your cognition as well and brain clarity. So I have a lot of patients that take that, but I think keep it simple. Don't go out there and buy a ton of supplements. And also take things with a grain of salt, because usually you'll see all these combination supplements and these newest, latest, greatest things out that Oprah or whatever other star is going to tout as like the best thing since sliced bread. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Because the whole point of vitamins and supplements is to help fill in the gaps of where you're not getting nutrients in your diet. And I didn't actually realize this, but I just recently learned about the vitamin and supplement industry really took off after the Depression. And so, really vitamins and supplements and minerals were started to be, touted to give to patients because there was really legitimate nutrient deficiencies after that period in our history. Nowadays, most of us get a decent amount of vitamins and minerals from the foods we eat. And so taking a vitamin for most healthy adults, like a multivitamin, is kind of unnecessary. So you could still do it, but your body's just going to get rid of what you're not utilizing. So you're going to pee it out. It's an expensive pee is what we say. Right, Mike?
That's right. So are we going to do it? Go to Costco and buy the Kirkland brand multivitamins. So actually, when I used to do a lot of obstetrics, people would ask me which brand I'm going to put prenatal vitamin. And I'd say, when my wife was pregnant, I made it a game to try and find the cheapest one that still was labeled prenatal vitamin, because I can't put that on there unless I have everything that needs to be in it. And that's how we feel about calcium. I know people disagree with me on this, but I think the easiest, cheapest way to get calcium is to buy a generic version of Tums and just chew one of those at night. They taste okay. It gives you calcium. It's dirt cheap. If you need calcium, your body's going to be able to use the calcium in whatever form. So, you could buy $150, calcium that comes from some exotic eggshell. Oh, he's really honey, chew on some Tums, you're going to be fine. And it will give you what you need.
Absolutely. I'm gonna have to go look for that one, the exotic eggshell one. That's funny. And it looks like our next question tonight is from Lindsay. And Lindsay is wondering, she says, do you have any suggestions on defeating the meno belly? She says, I've been very strict on diet and exercise. And she says, and I slowly eke down the scale, but my belly is way out of scans with the rest of it.
So the reason why we tend to accumulate weight in the middle, it's because our body composition is changing, but it really has to do with stress levels and cortisol levels. So the big thing is to go back to basics and make sure you're optimizing your sleep, making sure you're taking care of you, you're reducing your stress levels, doing self-care as much as possible. Because as long as your stress hormone level is high, doesn't matter how much exercise and how much calorie deficit you're in, your body can be in this fight or flight, starvation mode, and it will try to hold on to everything, and it tends to hold on in the middle. And so that's very, very common for a lot of women to experience. And so, that's something that I want to work on. Now, for a lot of women, generally when they start hormone therapy, their stress levels tend to go down once they kind of get acclimated and stabilized on their dose. They start to sleep better. You're not waking up multiple times in the night with night sweats. Overall, you feel better. You're stressed. You're able to deal with things in life. Your resilience builds because you're feeling better. And so then the meno belly starts to shift and your body composition change, and you'll start to lose that way. Also protein. We talked about it a little bit earlier in the call, but the other thing is I noticed many women doing the calorie restriction and exercising a lot, but if you're not getting enough protein in your diet, your body's going to hold on to fat. And so it's one of those things that you need to make sure that you're getting enough protein in dietarily so that your body can burn fat when you are exercising. Otherwise, you're going to do all this cardio, but your body's not really changing. So.
Awesome. Well, that looks like that might be our last question for the night. There are a number of comments in here that I just see about people having good experiences as well, or wanting to help out some people with recommendations. So I'm so glad that you all are putting those in there as well. I think that's like a huge part that I love about Winona.
I have a funny story I could tell to end us off for this holiday. So like, the interesting thing is, one of the first times, like early on in my 40s, when I was starting to have symptoms, that I really recognized that something was really happening. I was hosting this big Thanksgiving dinner, and I was in the kitchen, and I was taking things in and out of double ovens. And I really noticed I was getting so hot. I could not deal with it. And it wasn't just the oven. Nobody else in my house was hot. People were helping me in the kitchen. I kept going outside, out my front door in the end of November without a coat on, just to get relief. And then finally I was like, I wonder if these are hot flashes. But it was Thanksgiving. It was literally, because, you're stressed when you're prepping and you're getting ready for hosting a big dinner party. You want to make all the timing right, make sure all the, sides and all the fixins are all coming out at the same time as the turkey. But that was something that was so crazy. And it was really cold too. And everyone's like, why are you going outside? You're going to freeze. I'm like, no. It's like going in a refrigerator. It feels great.
You're like, no. Like, that is definitely what I need right now. I love it.
Yes,
absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Kat, for ending us off with that fun story as well, or fun in a way. You figured out what was going on, so I feel like that's the important part. Well, thank you everyone so much for being here tonight as well, and thank you, Dr. Green, and thank you, Dr. Kat, for your time. I know that it's always such a great time getting to get these questions answered and get to chat with everyone. So I'm so glad that we were able to make this happen. And then just a shout out for everyone as well who's on the call. If you ever have other questions as well, your doctor is always available in your patient portal 24/7. So that is a great place to reach out to them. It's kind of just like this, except it's like texting. So you can ask them all these questions and they'll get back to you. So that's a great place to reach out to them. We also have the Menopause Hour podcast on Spotify. So go ahead and check that out as well. But so glad that you all could be here tonight. Thank you, Dr. Green. Thank you, Dr. Kat, again. And I hope that everyone will hopefully see you before the holidays get in big swing again. But if we don't, I hope that the holidays are great for you as well. Whether that's Thanksgiving coming up or Christmas later or any other of the holidays as well. Hope that you guys have a great holiday season as well. But thank you everyone so much. And I hope everyone has a great
good night.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for spending time with us. We hope today's conversation helped you feel more informed, more supported, and a lot less alone. If you're ready to go deeper, download the Winona app. It's free, it's for you, and it's filled with resources, real stories, expert insights, and a vibrant space to connect with women navigating the same season. Have questions? Join our next live Q&A. Until next time, take care of yourself. We'll be here when you're ready for more.